Hello and welcome to Japanese craft beer reviews. In today's video we're going to take a look backwards at the year 2020, and we're going to look at a number of beers which I enjoyed during that year, and I guess you could call it a top 10 list, but it's actually top 16. These are beers that I rated very highly over the last year, and I want to share with you descriptions of them and information about them, and maybe you can go out and seek these beers and seek out these beers and try them yourself. And basically, last year I had a very low year, as did many people, for rating beers. Rate Beer told me that I rated 262 beers during the year, which is very, very low. And actually I would add 24 to that, which I hadn't put in before the end of the year. And even the person I know who rates the most beers of anybody in Japan had only 560 beers. So basically I'm kind of at the half point of that. And so it was a hard year to get out, especially after February, March, April, that time. Beer festivals were called off, and sampling sessions were called off, and so it was hard to get out. Bars were closed. Hard to get out and sample stuff, so a lot of online buying and online discussions and that sort of thing. So I'm going to look at 16 beers, and we'll be moving up from, not really low, but from a fairly high rating to the highest rating of the year, okay? And then at the end I'll kind of give you a recap, right? The first beer we'll look at is Old Chimneys Good King Henry Special Reserve, and this was a 2014 vintage. Thank you, Ben. We had this at a sampling, and this beer apparently was the highest rated English beer on Rate Beer for 8 years running. And the brewer, Alan Thompson, apparently retired after 40 years of brewing, but Good King Henry is still brewed now at Grain Brewery. This had a nose of really strong dark chocolate, tar, licorice. It was very, very dark brown, and the chocolate was strong dark chocolate, again tar, light licorice, some chalk, and a rather large kind of umami note in the from the mid palate onwards. Medium heavy body, just wow for this one. I gave this one 4.0 out of 5. This was a really special Imperial Stout. The next beer is Firestone Walker 22, the 22nd anniversary ale from this very well-known Californian brewery. This is a beer that is a blend of many different beers. It's a blend of 44% Sticky Monkey, 22% Parabola, and 22% Bravo, and 7% Eldorado, and 5% Gin Barrel Aged Eldorado. 12.7%, 32 IBUs, and this was thanks to Chris at a tasting. Very nice, very sweet, malty, caramel, dark fruit, some barrel aging, definitely. Bright body, ruby highlights, smooth, rich caramel, some chocolate, very rich and sugary, medium heavy body, very, very nice. I gave this one 4.0 out of 5. Great beer. And then we had Degard The Petria, and this is an Oregon brewery on the coast of Oregon, and all of their grape beers are fermented and aged for at least 2 years, and then re-fermented in oak barrels for at least 6 months. I had this one at a year-end session at a small bar in Osaka with some friends. A friend brought this, and it was a large bottle, light peachy nose. We had some white wine grapes and plenty of wild yeasty funk in this one. The color was light golden blonde, and we had some tart fruit, some vegetal bits, and then the fruit returns again until the finish. And this is really a beer to savor on the tongue. Thin body and astringent. Degard makes some wonderful beers, but the Some people don't find them quite as exciting. Their beers are very subtle, I think, and take some getting used to, for sure. This one was again a sour, wild beer, flavored beer with grapes. It's one of the kind of newish sort of grape-influenced ales, and it is a 7.9 percenter. I gave this one 4.0 out of 5. Really, really interesting grape ale. And next we have Baird Dark Sky Imperial Stout. And this is an Imperial Stout at 10%, 80 international bittering units. And I got this from Kyoto XXII department store liquor shop. They often carry 3 or 4 different Baird beers. This is in Kyoto Station. The nose was heavy chocolate, lots of dark roastiness, a bit of coffee, but mostly like a very thick, rich chocolate cake. Very dark brown, almost black color, and next to no head. The flavors are very rich, dark chocolate in the initial, and then light coffee, some dark sugar, and a very well blended sort of bitterness. Again, 80 international bittering units, and very long bitter tracks. Heavy, smooth, and sweeter than many imperial stouts, but delicious. I gave this one 4.0 out of 5. Next up is Pohara Sara Cellar Series Sajan, and this is a barrel-aged Imperial Rye Baltic Porter. It's in the top 50 on Rate Beer for its style, which is Porter Baltic. But at 12.3% and 40 IBUs, it's probably edging on what we would call an Imperial Stout. But it had a deep chocolatey nose, some alcohol fumes, very rich and roasty. Clear, deep brown color with translucent edges. A very sweet, super sweet chocolatey flavor with some bread, caramel, and certainly some alcohol presence. Kind of a medium heavy body, very warming, and a bit thick and hot on the tongue. This was tasty stuff, but it was sweet, sweet, sweet. I gave this one 4.0 out of 5. And now we have Devil Craft Midnight Seduction. This is an Imperial Stout, flavored, or sometimes called the pastry stout, according to Rate Beer. 12% beer, and I don't know the international bittering units, unfortunately. This was a big bottle. It had a very fat nose of deep dark chocolate, some licorice, coffee, and alcohol fumes. Very creamy, chocolatey flavors. The bitterness was not immediately apparent, but it kind of picked up in mid-palate. A very light umami sort of note, and some phenolic notes definitely. And both of those complement the base flavors. The body was thick and viscous and actually a bit oily. Pretty powerful stuff. This is from a brewery which I really hadn't had much. They're located in Tokyo, and we don't see them much in the part of Japan where I live, which is in the Kansai region, Osaka, Kyoto area. But it was very nice to try some beers from them, and this was definitely the best beer I had. I gave this one 4.0 out of 5. Okay, the next two beers are both from the same brewery, and this was kind of a surprise for me. I hadn't heard of them before, but a friend who was a beer writer was writing an article about them for a beer magazine, and so I checked out their website, and they had some sales, so I bought a couple of bottles of this wonderful Saison. And there are two kinds, and the first one is this one, Second Story Farmhouse Japonica or Japonica 2019. And this was a Saison, 8% Saison, and from the brewery. It has Brett in it, and the nose was moderately Bretty, some pleasant esters, some lightly sweaty notes, and a lot of crushed up stone fruit with a bit of dried fruit as well, dried red fruit. We had a very bright, clear gold straw color with 1.5 fingers of foam and a lot of carbonation rising. The flavors were mild peach, pineapple, apples, and white grapes. There was a little bit of stinging bitterness in the late mid-palate, And this was probably from the Sancho pepper which they employed. And the mouthfeel was pleasant, and the carbonation was very noticeable on the tongue. This was unusual, different, very enjoyable. Kind of impressive that a fairly new brewery made a Brett Saison to age just when they were starting out in business. Second Story is located in Tokushima, in a kind of rural area of Shikoku Island in Japan, and the brewer is an American who had been homebrewing in the U.S. and studied brewing in the U.S. and I'm quite impressed with his the quality of his brewing. This was actually just a rocking saison, a wonderful beer, and I hope to have some more of them soon in the future. Really a beer worth getting. Second Story Farmhouse Japonica 2019. I think they still have some available on their website, so you might want to check that out. And here's the sister beer to the previous one, which was Second Story Farmhouse Japonica 2019. This is Second Story Farmhouse Americana 2019. Exactly the same recipe, except in this one they used black pepper instead of Sancho pepper. Interesting choice, definitely, for spices. And this is also a saison, of course. Same exact recipe, 8% alcohol. In this one, the Brett came out right away, and the Brett yeast was much more noticeable than in the Japonica version. There was also some citrus and tropical fruit notes as well. It was a medium gold straw color with a frothy white head and a lot of carbonation streaming up from the center of the glass. The flavors initially were kind of gentle apricot and peaches, and kind of developing slowly. And the yeast is quite strong in this one. The black pepper starts out in mid-palate and develops along with some light tartness. This is certainly a bit wilder, it seems, less refined than the Japonica version. I really did like this beer a lot. I gave it 4.1 out of 5, so a tick higher. Maybe I could go to 4.2 on this one. It was really a special beer. Again, Second Story is a rather new brewery located in Tokushima, which is on the island of Shikoku in Japan, and this is definitely a brewery to watch, and I will be checking to see what new beers they come out with. And this probably should be a flagship, or certainly a regular beer in their lineup if they can do it. Really wonderful beer. Second Story Farmhouse Americana 2019. And if you get this, you might want to try it and pair it together with the Japonica 2019. Let's see how that works out. I found that the the Americana, was a little stronger, a little wilder, and more flavorful than the Japonica. Now this one is a classic beer for sure. In fact, it is called Samichlaus Classic, and it's an older beer. The brewery has changed over the past few years, and so it's no longer made by the same company. But this is a 2004 vintage, which I had been keeping around for a long time, and I happened to sample it this past year. This is a Doppelbock at 14% and 20 international bittering units, so pretty strong stuff. And this was sampled with some friends in conjunction with their Swartz version of Samichlaus. It had a very thick, treacly kind of nose, and some condensed dark fruit, raisins, light prunes. The color was very strongly glowing, dark reddish brown. Flavors were super thick, treacle, dark sugars, dark fruit, and alcohol. Medium heavy body and some light alcohol burn on the tongue. This one aged incredibly well. Again, 2004, so it was around 15, 16 years old when I had it. So, and yeah, it might be hard to find this one again. I liked it. I gave it 4.1 out of 5. Our next beer is called TDM 1874 Stardust Double IPA. And this is my favorite style, I have to confess, double IPA. I just like the concentration of strong malt and high alcohol and strong IBUs, everything. I just love it. And this is from again TDM 1874 Brewery located in Yokohama. 8%, 62 international bittering units. You crack this open, the can, and the scent just comes wafting right out at you, a meter away. Some really serious aroma. A lot of stone fruit, tropical fruit, pipe tobacco, and caramel candy sort of coming at you. Medium dark blonde color. There was some chill haze and very thick white foam, and some lace, rather thick lace, kind of grabbing at the glass. The flavors were citrus, tropical fruit, and a rather sweet maltiness that emerged in mid-palate. Then some hops appeared and kind of moved around and more or less attached themselves to the upper palate, kind of a lot of texture. Very full-featured beer. The hops are the show, definitely, but the beer is not unbalanced. Really, really great stuff, and again, my favorite style of beer. I gave this beer 4.2 out of 5, and if you go online, you can find TDM 1874 beers. They're made by a young English brewer named George Juniper, and he makes some wonderful beers. You can go online. They have a Rakuten shop where you can buy their beers, so I highly recommend you try out this brewery. The next beer is from Kyoto Brewing in Kyoto, Japan, and it's called Winter's End, and this is the barrel-aged version. In Japanese, it's Toumin Kara no Mezame and Ichinen Chukusei, 1 year in the barrel. And it is an Imperial Stout at 9% alcohol, 46 international bittering units. And this is a bottle I got from the brewery. It spent 14 months in Ichiro's malt barrels, and you open it up and oh my goodness, what a nose. Very deep chocolate, dark fruitiness, and something like soy sauce, and definitely some whiskey barrel notes and fumes, alcohol fumes coming up. Very opaque brown, very dark brown with a half finger of dark tan head. And the flavors are very rich chocolate to open up, and then some umami, maybe soy sauce or dried fish, lots of dark fruit, some spice, and gentle whiskey notes, and a bit of coffee as well. The body was medium body, maybe just a touch thin, and the aroma is just incredible, really. The barrel notes, fortunately, do not dominate, but complement the other flavors, and it hides the 9% alcohol very well. This is exceptional stuff, and I wish I'd gotten a few more bottles of this. I'd like to put it away for 3, 4, or 5 years and see how it comes out. And I'm sure the brewery probably has some of this left, and I might try to see if I can get any of it in bottles again. Really wonderful beer. Kyoto Brewing, Winter's End, Toumin Kara no Mezame. And give Kyoto Brewing a go. You can check their website and see all the things that they have available. I gave this 4.2 out of 5. Our next beer is also from Kyoto Brewing, and it's another stout, Imperial Stout, and it is called Black is Beautiful. This is 10% and 66 international bittering units. And this is part of the project started by Weathered Souls in San Antonio, Texas, and it is designed to bring awareness of injustices suffered by people of color, I'm quoting here. And over 1,100 breweries from 20 different countries took part in it, and Kyoto Brewing's beer is Black is Beautiful in this series. This poured out a very viscous, opaque, dark brown, very thick, dark tan head. Dark chocolate aroma with some slight burnt roast malt, some alcohol fumes, and light coffee. The flavors were again chocolate, some thin red wine sort of note, roast malt, a bit of ash, and some coffee. This was very smooth and it had a very creamy mouthfeel. Uh, they used 8 different malts in this. Really a wonderful stout. Kyoto Brewing Black is Beautiful. I gave this one 4.2 out of 5. The next one is Doomsday Hound by New Realm Brewery, and this is a brewery located in Atlanta, or in Georgia, and they have another brewery, I believe, in North Carolina. And a fairly new brewery. It was the main brewer is Mitch Steele, who came to fame with Stone Brewing and developing the IPA style on the west coast of California. And this is a 9.5% Imperial Stout, 60 international bittering units. It had aromas of coffee, rich chocolate, and some licorice. Very deep brown color, super rich chocolatey flavors, dark fruit, puree, coffee, cream, very heavy, thick, and creamy body. This was a superb Imperial Stout. And 2 versions of this. There was a barrel-aged one, which we had at the same sampling session, which wasn't quite as interesting, unfortunately, as just the regular Doomsday Hound. But this is a very special beer from a brewery that apparently does everything very well. I gave this one 4.3 out of 5. And now we have Schneider Weisse Aventinus Weizen Eisbock. I have to admit I have had this on more than one occasion, but I looked at it very carefully in the last year, and it's as good as ever. This is a couple of years beyond the drink by date. I've been holding on to it for perhaps too long. The nose was super concentrated plums, raisins, dates, sugar, and some alcohol fumes. Very dark brown with translucent edges. The flavor started out with massive dark fruit, very jammy and sugary, spices, some cinnamon in it. Really marvelous fruit concentration and blends. It's very warming from the start. It's 12% alcohol. In fact, you feel this beer at all palate stages and quite a while afterwards, too. This is a true pleasure, a classic beer. At the same time, it's also probably a bit too much. The dark wheat character of the base beer, the base Weizen, is transformed really beyond recognition. It is a special beer experience, however, and one you should try once. I gave this beer 4.3 out of 5, and this is definitely one of the beers you must try at some point in your life. Again, it's called Schneider Weisse Aventinus Weizen Eisbock. This is Kyoto Brewing Goji no Hedatari, which they translate as 5 degrees of separation. And this is kind of an anniversary beer for them, 5 years in the business, and I got this from the brewery. It's a strong ale, American strong ale, 9% alcohol, 32 international bittering units, and the malty aroma just picked up right from the beginning. It has coffee in it, so the coffee jumps right out, along with some chocolate and creamy spiciness. Very clear, deep copper color, a finger of off-white foam, and very slow carbonation rising. The flavors were of chocolate, coffee, and light vanilla, extremely rich. The coffee's present, but it's not scorched or overwhelming in any way at all. Some considerable alcohol warmth. The bitterness was smooth and kind of flows along from the initial sip through to the finish. The alcohol is very well hidden in the flavors, and this is just an absolute beautiful beer. Not everybody I know liked it as much as I did, but for me it's one of the top beers I had last year. The flavors are all wonderfully blended. It just kind of simmers and moves along to the edge of a kind of spirits-based beverage and then back to beer. It's just it's wonderful. I have another bottle of it, and I've been hanging on to it. I might share it with some friends and try to convince them that it's one of the best beers for this year. Again, called Kyoto Brewing Goji no Hedatari, 5 degrees of separation, kind of a 5th year anniversary beer for Kyoto Brewing. I give this one 4.4 out of 5, and I think I could probably even go a point or two higher than that. Okay, a drum roll, please. This is the highest rated beer I had last year. It's a collaboration beer between Shiga Kogen, a Japanese brewery located in the north part of Nagano Prefecture, and Dieu de Ciel. It's called Shiga Kogen Dieu de Ciel Iseki Sancho, and it translates to 3 birds with 1 stone. You know the expression, 2 birds, to get 2 birds with 1 stone. This is 3 birds and 1 stone. And it is a Saison, dark Saison, 12% alcohol, 90 international bittering units. I got this actually from a 7-Eleven store, amazingly, in Nakano City, which is not too far from the brewery. And I was lucky to find this for sure. It has a huge chocolate aroma and certain whiskey notes kind of wafting up around the edges as well. It's aged in whiskey barrels. And the flavors have some berries, cherries, chocolate, vanilla, char, and more and more. It just goes on and on. It's very light Belgian yeast sort of in the mix as well. Very complex. And it's actually a little bit older than 2019 because the base beer was made in 2017. The malt barrels really developed this one nicely. It's probably the best beer I've ever had from Shiga Kogen, and that's saying a lot because I've had quite a few, and they are among the top breweries in Japan. So this was spicy, big-bodied, full of complex flavors, and I just have to say, wow. Yeah, I wish I could get more of this. It's very, very hard to find. So 12%, 90 international bittering units. Shiga Kogen Dieu de Ciel Iseki Sancho. If you ever see this, you might want to give it a go. Okay, well that is it. I gave this one actually a 4.5 out of 5. I could probably do a little higher on this one as well. Okay, that's it. So there you have it. 16 beers, 16 of the best beers that I had for during the last year, during 2020. And just a quick recap here, there were 6 Imperial Stouts, 3 Saisons, 2 strong ales, and 1 each of sour and wild ale, Baltic Porter, Bock, Doppelbock, Bock Ice Bock, and Imperial IPA. And 16 beers, and they were all pretty much big beers. And I find that this is tends to be a kind of a habit for many people. Big beers get big reviews. It's unfortunate, but we tend to be impressed by those beers that have massive flavors, high alcohol, etc. The top brewery for me was Kyoto Brewing, and I had 3 beers from them. And the second was Second Story Brewing, a very new brewery from Tokushima in Shikoku. I hope you have a chance to try some of these beers. Some of them are widely available, some of them are very limited, and you may not have a chance. But anyway, get out and go start working on your best beers of 2021. That's it. Bye-bye.